What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Wealth Not Weight channel. I'm your host, as always, Joseph Kawisa, and on today's episode of Making a Mogul, we're going to be reviewing another Ben Mallah video. If you've been following the channel and following what I've been doing, you know that real estate investing with Landa is very similar to stocks, so I'm doing some rundown on numbers. Obviously, being somebody who's now being a real estate enthusiast, but not very knowledgeable, I want to know numbers, what's good as far as cash flow, debt to asset ratios. That's what I did with the Intelligent Investor and stocks and investing with Warren Buffett and everything like that. So now I'm applying it with a great, amazing mogul himself, Ben Mallahs. We're going to be watching those videos and finding the numbers. And then we're going to be comparing it to stocks and see, is this something that I can apply that knowledge? Because going with my theory, everything's connected, your wealth, your weight, everything. Connecting now that information from stocks, connecting it to real estate, and see if I could use something along the same metrics. I also want to point out that any of the videos that I'm watching or talked about or I'm using for this knowledge is on a playlist. So if you go to the playlist on my channel, Making a Mogul, you can watch, follow along, and draw your own conclusions. If for whatever reason you don't like mine, which I don't know why you wouldn't like any of my conclusions, you know, obviously it's the best. But if you want to form your own conclusions and everything, which I do highly recommend, and follow along with your real estate and anything like that, any of your investments, or just learn real estate in general, or maybe want some interesting, entertaining content, because a lot of these people are interesting. Maybe some of them may be more interesting than me. Maybe. But if you want to follow along with that, I do have that playlist. Again, it's Making the Mogul playlist on the channel, and follow along. So we're going to get into it, and I'm going to film my reactions and anything and information I have on this video now.
All you need is a piece of paper, a pen, a calculator, a pack of Newports, and a lighter for a cigarette break. Okay,
yeah, I'm on a mogul.
Everything is bargaining. There's nothing etched in stone in lending or buying real estate. Everything's negotiable.
So that's also something Chris Voss talks about, the FBI negotiator who would never split the difference. He said, if somebody's not acting, there's still a way you can influence their outcome. So if someone hasn't sold that product yet, you can still say something to affect that. If, say someone, and to put it into his perspective, if someone hasn't killed a hostage yet, there's still something that you can do to affect that outcome, because if there wasn't, they'd be acting on it. There's something that you could still do. And then I watched it via Jason Capital, and him being a former dating coach, something that he talked about was, yeah, if that girl is still at the bar, hanging out, talking to guys, flirting with people, you then can go over still and flirt and potentially spark a relationship or something, because they're not with somebody yet. If they really found somebody they liked, they would have went with them. They would have started a relationship or went home with them or whatever. But they haven't, so you're still able to do something and influence that decision and bargain. You know, essentially, that's the way it is. Everything in life is bargaining and negotiation. That's why communication, all that's very important, is you want to learn bargaining, negotiation, communication, and that will greatly help you in life. Especially somebody like me who uses eBay and does sales and all that, but just in life in general.
Don't be afraid to negotiate. You can always go up, but you can't go down. On the nose, you're going to get a 14% return on your money, baby.
So that's very interesting the way he set it up, is that he talked about if you bought $1 million property, $800,000 would be, in his way, invested from the bank. You'd get that money from the bank. You get that as a loan. You put down 20%, which a lot, he said. 10% is really a lot in his world of it. So on $200,000 investment, you would make about, after everything is said and done, $28K a year. And I watched the video if you want to find the exact number, but $28K a year after all your expenses, your interest, your lawn guy, all this, which 50% of your revenue is going to go to those expenses, and then 4% interest he gets on his loan. So 50% of your revenue, not income, 50% of your total revenue from that property is going out to your expenses. So you're left with then 50%. He said 50% on the low side. So you're left with 50%, and then you take out that 4% interest on the $800K, your loan payment essentially, and then you'd be left with $2,300 a month or $28K. So 14% a year is pretty good, what he's saying. The one I got was about 10%. I don't know how much Landa has as far as 14% a year. I think that's a little out there for this one. But considering how I'm not taking out loans or anything, it may be reasonable. And that's, again, also averaging out with the stock market. So especially when they add some new stuff, it looks like the prices are going to fluctuate heavily. If I get in early with a good property that I really enjoy, I may be able to build a significant amount. Say put in $2 to $3 and get back 10, 15%, but then the price of it's going to increase, so I have the appreciation, of course, and then I have the investment again, kind of like a stock.
$1,500 a month. Don't rent an apartment for less than. Person comes into the office and says, I want to rent an apartment. If the rent is $750 a month times 2.5, that means they have to make $1,875 a month minimum to be able to afford the rent. Times 2.5.
So especially with rates being so high, that's something now I'm going to have to double check and look in for the area. So say the property that I have, if the average income is, because they don't give us the information on the tenant, which of course, I mean, that makes sense, you know, security reasons and all that. If the average income isn't 2.5 times that, that may be something I'd be a little concerned about. But given how it's like a family and whatnot, I'm a little understanding that's just a metric. So say that area that's very unlikely, I may say, hey, you know, compare that to the average occupancy rating. But with 92% occupancy, or I think 95 mine was. It was upper 90s. No, 97, that's what it was. So some of the numbers. I remember it was good. With something along those lines, I'd be hard-pressed to find that people don't have the income to pay for that. Obviously, with rates and everything going up, or at least staying somewhat stagnant, and they're definitely not going down, that's something I want to take a look at. But if it's a, say, statistically very poor area compared to the rental increase, and then the rental rate is low, that may kind of deter me because there's not a lot of people in that area, one, looking for properties, or two, they are and they can't afford it. But Landa has a little bit of a lower property rate, so I think for the predominant part we're going to be good on it. But it's just another metric we could check and see, and then maybe show us, hey, this may be a red flag, or two, this may be a good thing for your property. So that's it for that part of the video. The big takeaways being that the 14% is what he wants to make on his return for his initial down payment investment. Also, that 80% of the total is invested. That's like the bare minimum. He said it could go really up to 90% because 10% needs a lot for the down payment. He used $1 million home and saying making $1,000 an apartment, $10K a month, and you could go back and find the exact numbers. He used kind of an estimate and a basis, just a fictional idea of, hey, if you break down these numbers, to just show the outline, not necessarily a real estate property he has. But that of it, the gist of it is that 80 to 90% is going to be debt. That's a big difference from something like stock investing. They're worth twice the amount of debt that they have, or more, versus the company. So the company's worth $1 million, they have 500,000 or less in debt. So that's the way that real estate is very much a debt game. And that's something I'm going to be looking at as far as the properties that they have for Landa, is what's their debt to capital ratio. Some of them are like 40%, 57%, especially with it, I believe, being less than a year that they've owned these properties. That's pretty good. So the more they own outright these properties, the less it's going to. I'm also going to be checking their expenses to see how good are they on their expenses. These properties look well maintained and taken care of, but if their expenses are ridiculously high, that may dissuade me. But it looks like their expenses usually are pretty good, so it looks like they really know what they're doing here. And I'm not just saying that because the CEO commented on my video, which I did see. I'll put that up now, which I'm very proud of. It's a real, genuine, honest look at it. It looks like they're doing really good with their stuff, but I'm trying to find something now maybe closer to 14% instead of 10%, which again, historically is better than the stock market. You're buying stock, I'm not putting up money out front and saying, I'm taking out a loan on my house or nothing. I'm not taking out loans, I'm not doing that. I'm putting all the money up front and buying it like a stock. So it's very much like a stock market in that situation, but the debt ratios and all that, that's why I watched this, to find those numbers compared to what I would invest in as a stock, are essentially very, very different. So I'm going to be doing a further breakdown. Maybe the next video will get a little more in depth and do direct comparisons, but it's a lot, and I don't want to overcomplicate this video just yet. But doing a quick little update again on Landa. If you enjoy Landa and you like using Landa, essentially now they congealed, I have a little checklist here. They congealed all their properties that are Brooklyn, and they have Atlanta now. Before it was like this one in Stockbridge and this one and that one, and 4 or 5 in each one. Now it's 3 properties in Brooklyn, 42 in the Atlanta area. So it's Atlanta Metro, it's the area I invested in, it's a couple other areas. I imagine they did to make it easier to find things. It's not 67 different properties that you got going on now. They have just those 42 properties. You can invest in the Atlanta area or the 3 properties in Brooklyn, along with the new properties that are coming. On my investments, I'm up 13%, which is great and awesome. That's with the free stocks, with appreciation, and the payments that I've gotten. Overall, the amount of money I put into the app, I've gotten 13% more than what I've put in. So that's pretty good, especially within just a couple of months. That's really good, to be honest with you. Again, average stock market is about 10% a year. This not making up a large portion of my portfolio, but something that's growing, especially as I learn more about it from Ben Mallah, working more with the app, seeing the app grow, making connections in my head and learning that real estate. That's definitely something that's affecting it. But 13% on my investment right now is really, really good, and I'm really happy with. But I also want to notice that I'm not just doing this for the outcome. I'm enjoying and loving the process. I like making the video, documenting it, not just creating things, but documenting the process, learning from people like Ben Mallah, Benjamin Graham, the opportunities that's going to open up from this. I love learning and the process of learning, not just, okay, I have $1 million in property. That's the only thing I care about. Obviously, I have these goals, but I love the process of building, watching that slow growth, watching it go up and down, and building over time and kaizening and learning more and getting better, putting money in, maybe having some failures, having some success, and learning. I truly love the process. The outcome is great. Obviously, make a lot of money and be financially free and successful is awesome. Becoming a mogul is great, but I love the process, and that's what really keeps me going with this and what I'm loving, especially right now, is the process of learning, and that's with everything I do, is loving the process. So I hope you guys like this video. Let me know in the comments below if you learned anything new. Do you invest in real estate? Have you used Landa? What's your thoughts on both? I hope you guys like this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.